You enjoyed my pun. And we're going to make an interactive, fun Git and GitHub workshop for girls, women, and gender diverse people. So yeah, excited to have you all on the chat with me. Please feel free to ask questions throughout at any point. And yeah, let's kick it off by saying, where are you starting from? So love people if they want to come off, come on mute or come off mute and tell us what brought them here today, where they're starting out from. Have you used Git before? Is this your first time? Have you had some good or bad experiences with Git, which makes you want to learn more or overcome some sort of hurdle? Is there something that you're stuck with? So if anyone wants to come off on mic and tell us that, or drop it in the comments, that would be awesome.
I guess my problem is as soon as it gets difficult, I can do a pull and I can do a push, but when you get conflicts, when somebody says, do a pull request or something, then I get totally lost.
Yeah, that is extremely fair. Like, it's pretty straightforward when you're just working by yourself, but then as soon as somebody else wants to get involved and you got to share your code and then they've got some different code and it's caused a conflict, it can be a bit scary. And that's definitely where I got stuck for a number of years. Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else for us? You're typing. Look forward to receiving a comment. Joy, use it every day, but if it's anything out of the ordinary, I'm stuck, especially if I have to undo what I have done. Yeah, when I get stuck and I have to undo something, I normally just get myself into more of a mess when I try to undo something. So it's very interesting. So it's always a learning journey, no matter how many years you've used it and no matter how many teams. It's a bit crazy. Okay, anybody else with where they're starting from story? Anybody here using Git for the first time or like has just started using it? Chuck it in the chat if you are. Okay, so let's power on. So today's workshop, we're going to start at the very start. What is version control? What is Git and what is GitHub, and what are the differences between these things? Because sometimes you can be like, I'm using Git, or does that mean I'm using GitHub? And like, if you haven't used it all before and haven't been explained, it might be a bit confusing what the differences are. We'll also go through some key phrases and concepts for Git, and then we'll do a bunch of activities on how to start a project, how to use VS Code with Git, the GitHub integration, how to commit and push things, and how to work in a team using branches, forks, merging, and pull requests. Okay, so firstly, version control, Git, and GitHub. Why do we need version control? What is Git? What is GitHub? What's the difference? So we're starting here. Let's go back to this picture. If you've this is like what my computer looked like during any uni project that I was doing in my days before version control, and you just have like a million copies of the same thing that are all slightly different. And yeah, and it's hard to find the right thing, and you get everything messed up, and it's a bad time, and there is a better way. So that is where we start out with version control, which is we've got version control, Git, and GitHub. So version control is our broadest category. It's a concept of using technology to manage files and make working in teams and sharing files and writing code easier, and keeping track of what the changes have been throughout. And then being able to go back potentially if you need to see what your code was like before you made some sort of change that maybe broke everything in your build. So that's the concept. Git is just one implementation of version control, one way of doing it with a specific set of features and commands. Git is an open source implementation. Anyone can use it for free. And yeah, so it's widely available and widely used, and probably the most used version control implementation. Finally, we've got GitHub, which sounds a lot like Git, but isn't the style of version control itself. GitHub is a platform that supports Git projects. So if you're using Git, you can use GitHub to push your projects onto the cloud. It also has a bunch of other tools to help make working with other people easier. So you can add your teams, you can add tickets for items that need to be done. You can add extra features that make it easy to integrate your code with other tools. So yeah, as we said, version control makes your code not look like this, but you can have many different flavors of version control. The way to back up your files, work collaboratively with a team on shared files, and have snapshots. I'm going to call them as like an off-brand name, snapshots of different points in time, and identify code that doesn't go together because one person's written this thing, one person's written that thing. They're actually in the same spot. It's going to be an issue if you have not, managed which one is the real one that you actually want to keep, because you can't keep both of them in the same spot, because that's just going to be more broken if you keep both one up to the other. So that's version control. Then we've got a few options. We've got Git, of course, which is the most popular one. There's other ones you might have heard of, SVN or Subversion, CVS, Concurrent Version Systems. Bizarre. I hadn't heard of that one until I was looking up this list. And Mercurial, which is another one I've heard of. So there's a bunch of different ones. You might have heard of them. They're various different ages, but Git is definitely the most popular one these days. So what is Git? Git is just one type of version control, as we saw, and it's the most commonly used. And some of the great features about it that make it the most commonly used is you can make branches in your code to try different ideas. So if you had one central piece of code and you wanted to fork and go 2 different ways, you didn't know which was going to be better, you could do both. Or you could have 100 different branches and weave them together in whatever way as the ideas solidify in each of those mini projects. You can switch between those branches easily. So if you said, oh, actually, I'm not going to work on that, it's more urgent, I work on this branch over here, you can easily just pop over to this other branch. There's lots of things that work with GitHub, with Git, because things like GitHub have a lot of ways to hook it up to other services, like deploying a website and things like that. So it makes doing other stuff really easy. And you can do things like deploying specific branches. So you can say, this is my main branch. The one that you see when you go to renenoble.com is the main branch. And whatever's on there will get shown. But you can have a bunch of other branches where you're working on different pieces of code that don't necessarily work yet. Finally, there's lots of platforms like GitHub to store your code online, and they all have a bunch of different tools which are really useful for coding, working in a team, managing upcoming items and that kind of stuff. So how does Git track files? So you have your files on your computer, and when you save them, you just have that save of whatever the characters are in that file. But Git does it in a more interesting way than just having a copy of your file every single time you make a new commit to say, this is what we currently have. It doesn't just copy the whole thing, because that would take up a lot of extra space where you might have just added one more line of code. So instead of having that, it does what's called a diff. And this is what a diff looks like for some recent code I was making. So basically in this code, all I wanted to do was change the text in this header, make some changes to the order of some form fields, and then add a couple of classes and IDs to some of the things, to some of the divs. So you can see that most of the code's the same and doesn't light up, but the parts that changed, we can keep a register of this was added, this was deleted, this was changed, and takes up a lot less room. And that way you can just calculate what the file looks like based on all of those changes. And later, when we want to put 2 different files together, if we want to merge them, we can see this one doesn't have any changes in the same area as that one. We can just easily put them together. Or we can see that this one has the same line that's been changed, and that can't go together. So that's what that's all about. So we're going to hear also, we're learning not only about Git today, but also about GitHub. And GitHub is a platform that supports Git projects. So it connects your local files to back them up online. So it's just a way of having your stuff stored in the cloud or on a remote, as we call it. And when you're using Git, you don't necessarily have to store them on the cloud. You can just have them locally on your computer, or you could back them up to a remote of your own to have a separate copy somewhere else. But you can have, this is one way to store them on the cloud safely, and then have the other people also be able to work on the same files in project teams, basically. GitHub has a bunch of tools to work together with others. It might be things like leaving comments when someone makes a pull request requesting you to include their code in your project, and you can leave comments on specific parts, or you can keep track of issues that are in the code and people can report a bug. So there's a lot of different tools like that you can use to make working together easier. And it has tools for looking at your code, so I can inspect and see who wrote this line of code because I need to change something in this area, and maybe I could talk to this person about what I might need to do next. And finally, it integrates with a bunch of other platforms. So there's things called GitHub Actions, which mean you can just hook it up to other services and it will automatically deploy or automatically run your tests when doing something, or automatically you update your website and things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do with GitHub, which is really useful. There's a bunch of other platforms out there, but we're going to talk about GitHub today because it is the most popular one and also the one that Microsoft bought. So that's why we're going to do that one. As soon as my computer unfreezes. Any second now, that would be great. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, no questions. So we're going to take a look around at GitHub then. If I can find my window that I made, especially for this moment. But it's disappeared. Let's get a new window. So we're going to go to GitHub. Now I'm already logged in. So when I'm logged in, it takes me to here. I would recommend, if you haven't brought along a GitHub account, that you create one. So let's see what that looks like as well. So if you haven't used GitHub before, you can go here to sign up and fast to make an account. But yeah, I'd get started on that one if you haven't done that already. Or we'll have a minute to do that in a second if you want to keep watching the demo. I'm already logged in. So you can see on my profile, I have a bunch of stuff, and it's not necessarily the most friendly looking thing if you've never been on GitHub before. So let's have a look around. So this is my profile. I could probably make it a bit prettier. There's ways to do that. Maybe I'll run a workshop on that next time. I have a bunch of organizations I'm in. I own some of them. I'm part of some of them. Obviously, I don't own the Microsoft organization. And I can jump to these different ones. Here's my demo org I made for this. And you can see, for instance, the demo orgs repositories. This one just has the one repository called test1. It's a high quality name. So back to me. I got to jump back to my personal. So you have, when you create your account, you have your own personal organization of sorts that just has all your personal repositories in it, or repos for short. So this is where I keep all of my code for all my various streams. And you can see, for instance, let's have a look at this one. This is one of my repositories from my Code to Cloud series, where I made a little party invitation web app and then deployed it on the cloud. So I have a bunch of files here, and then I have a README that tells you what it is all about and why, what you might find in this repository. Yeah, so those are kind of our basic, base level things there. So let's see what else is next up. Okay, cool. So as an exercise, we're going to start by making a repo in GitHub, and then we're going to clone it to VS Code. If you haven't used VS Code and the GitHub integration before, it's actually really convenient. Until joining Microsoft, I've just done everything in the terminal, but actually it makes life really easy, and just having that graphical interface there to use. And then we're going to talk about what to do if you already have a project, but you haven't put it on Git yet, but it's already on your computer. So let's jump back to wherever my thing is. There we go. Let's reorder that so it's not such far away. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to jump back to here, and I'm going to make myself, it's my profile. I don't know why it just shows you different things sometimes. Let's go to repositories, You can have my enormous list. And I'm going to create a new repository. And I'm going to call this one Getting Started Demo 1. I could put a description in here, show the code. So how to use GitHub. That will turn up in my README. If I add a README, which I will, because it's always good to have a README. And then let's talk about some of the other features in here. So this one is useful for if you have a specific kind of project. I'm going to make ours a Python project just because that's my one I'm most familiar with. And this adds things to ignore. So when you're making a Python project, you might want to ignore things like your virtual environment or your secret keys file. So this will have all of the basic things added to a git ignore file, which will say, whenever we're committing things, whenever adding things, ignore these files. Don't ever ask us to put them up there in case you accidentally put all of your secret keys into a public repository. So that's what that's about. It's great to add if you don't know 100% what you should or shouldn't be putting in. This will stop you making an accident. Let's talk about this as well. Got public and private repositories. I'm making a public one today. With your personal GitHub account, you'll get several, I forget how many, private repositories for free. If you want to make a business out of it and you need multiple more, you need like 10 repositories and various other tools, you can start paying to have extra stuff. But you do get a bunch of private ones on your basic free account, which is great. Finally, you can add some licenses if you want to make yours open source in a particular way or something. So let's get started with that. Okay, so now we've got our git ignore, which we can see that it tells you to ignore a bunch of stuff, which is great, and that's there, and we're not going to read it because it'll just handle it for us. We've got our README, which is what's in here. And then we've got the most important part for now, which is we go into code and we go into local and we see that we're in the SSH tab and we want to get this, which is going to help us copy this to be local on our computer. So it gives us a local copy that we can edit. And then when we're ready, we can push more parts of it back up to the cloud to keep everything in sync. So let us go to VS Code. I'm going to get us a new window. Bring it on screen. Okay, so in VS Code, I'm going to go clone git repo. And do this. And I'm going to find it a home in my many Microsoft projects. Put in here. I'm going to make a new folder called demo to put it in. I'm going to put it inside there. Oop, and I put something about Jupyter notebooks. Let's ignore that. Okay. Open. And then we're going to open our Git repo. And we can see that our README, Getting Started demo, show you how to use GitHub is in here. And we're ready to, start coding on here, which is great. But we're also going to talk about how you can do this in various other ways. So you might not want to do it in VS Code. You might want to do it through the terminal. So we're going to also open up the terminal. I'll show you how we can do that. I'm going to pop that on the screen. So let us go in here and I'll work out where on earth I'm going to put this into Getting Started. Okay, and I'm going to make another just to put it in somewhere else. I'm going to make a file. I'll make a directory called demo2 just so they're not in the same place. So if I wanted to do it this way, let's just make that a bit bigger for you. And we could just say git clone and do this. And then it will clone it for us. And we will now have go into demo 2. No, I didn't actually go into demo 2. So now there's one on this level. So now you can see on this level that there is Getting Started demo 1. So I can cd into Getting Started, and I can show you that the README is in there. I can also show you if I do the -LA that you've also got the git ignore. Also, you've got this Git folder, which is where all of the stuff that, your Git configuration for this location, like what the remote is and things, is stored. So that's all there. We've only got one more thing to do, which is learn how to make one from if you already have a project on your computer and you want to get it up onto Git. So I guess I'm going to use demo 2 here. Now, this is my new project that I want to put up onto Git. So I'm going to just make a file. It doesn't have anything in it, but that's fine. I'm going to call it Zero Touch. I'm going to call it myfile.txt, and that's going to be in our Git repo. It's a really important file, so I really want to make sure it's stored on the cloud and other people can use it, and we can work on myfile.txt as a team. So now we're going to need to make one more repo that we can use to put this one in. So we're going to go and make a new repo in repositories. So this one's going to be Getting Started local repo. Okay, I'm not going to add any of the things this time because we already have a project, and that's not gonna, we don't want to add all of that in. I think you can do it, but this is the easiest way. If you've got something on your computer already, it's best to just go, just create, and then it's going to give you this page. And this has a bunch of stuff on how you could set it up in a variety of ways. And the one we're going to want here is push an existing repository from the command line. So this is saying I have some code. I want it to be on GitHub now. So you can take care of it for me. So I'm going to start by, let's just run one line at a time. Here we go. I'm going to run that. For some reason that happens to me sometimes. And it's happened earlier today. Let's run the whole thing, because for some reason it tried it earlier today and then it said that, and then very weird, but also not that weird, because Git can be a bit weird sometimes. Okay, one line at a time. If something doesn't work, is the way to go. Okay, so let's read the thing. Not a repository or any parent directories .git. So we're in here. And everyone has Git issues, as you can see here. If you have a comment on how to fix Git, please do let me know. Because I did test this not but an hour ago, and then I was able to resolve this issue. It was very fun.
Renee, I don't think that folder has a local repository in it yet.
So because I haven't committed anything, of course. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so yes, we need to make this know that it's supposed to be a Git thing. I'm sure that's in my notes that I've added on my slides, but because I've not got my slides up, I can't see them. Okay, so let's go. We're going to cover how to do this more in a second. I'm going to say Git. We need to go Git and init. That's the part that's in the slides. Git and init. That says this is now a repository, and we can actually start doing things without even having a GitHub thing up there. So we can say add, so it doesn't need to actually be connected to the cloud before you can start getting things in to save them and store them, etc. So now I'm going to say git add and my file name. Let's go git status so I can remember what I called my file. Git add my file.txt. There we go. Cool. And now we can say we can commit it. We're going to cover all of this in more detail in a minute. So we're going to say this is the best file ever. Okay, so now we've got in our Git log, which is a way you can say, what have I done? In here, we can say that we've said the best file ever has been added. And you can get more details on that, but that's just the short version of what is all the stuff that's happened in order going back. So now, thanks to Sarah, we can finally add our remote, and then we can do the rest of this as well. So now it's pushing our thing up to the cloud. If I refresh this page, now we can see that my file.txt is up here, which is great. Cool. So those are different ways we can go about making a repository. So I hope people have been following along. I'm also going to give you a minute to ask any questions or to do that process yourself. Jump off on the chat if you're following along. Tell me which of the different processes that you're doing. Are you going to try and make one from a file you have locally? And remember to do Git and it. Or are you making a repo on GitHub first and then you're cloning that down so you can start working on it? G on the call. G always joins us using, so you could create pull requests. You could try without the terminal to create pull requests using clicking icons in VS Code editor. What would you, is that in terms of like merging or just creating a repo from VS Code to get started? And we've got Joy had a repo on GitHub that hadn't pulled down onto my new laptop, so she's doing that. Fantastic, excellent, good to get some work out of the way as well while you're in the workshop. Good excuse to get started on that. Anuska has been creating a repo in GitHub, then going through the terminal instructions. If I already have files, I then dump them in. Fantastic. Not the prettiest, but it sort of works. Yeah, Git isn't always the prettiest, but like it gets the job done. It gets the job done. Yeah, but it is pretty handy, especially I don't know when I've made a mistake in something and I go, oh, thank goodness I can go back a couple of commits and make everything better again. Thanks, Gail, for joining us, who's heading out. Give that another 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to our next core skills to do. Got a great analogy coming up for all of you. Oh, Sarah's made a new repo and cloned it into Visual Studio Code. Do you use any VS Code Git extension? I do. I was just about to say I should cover that. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, where is my stuff? Okay, yeah, so if you want to know about the extensions, I have the installed extensions. Where are they? Git, GitHub. I have this extension here. Canister Peter is who it's by. And it's really convenient for seeing all of the files that you have going on. For instance, if I make a new file in here, I'm going to call it new file.txt, and I'm going to write hello in it. Then I can see in here that the changes that have happened is that new file has been added. And then in a second, we're going to get to what staging is, but you can say at least things are staged. And there's a bunch of different buttons for writing your message, commit message. And there's all of these different things in here. That means you don't always have to remember all of the commands, which I am always forgetting. I frequently Google like how to make a new branch or something, and it turns out it's probably exactly what I thought it was, but you can never be quite sure. So it's really convenient to have these here and not have to remember everything all of the time because there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's go on forward. Unless anyone has any questions before we move on, got stuck on anything in their Git repo creating endeavors. Do shout out at any time or pop something into the chat because you got me till 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock? 6:30. Okay, cool. Let's get on to Git core concepts, the things that you need if you were going to start out, even just as a solo coder, and you wanted to be able to store your stuff on GitHub, and not even if you're not working in a team. And if you're working in a team, you're definitely going to need to know this stuff as well. It's just the best starting point for everybody. So I'm going to talk about my favorite analogy for what Git is like. It's got 4 steps involved in it, and it's like a shopping trip. So first you go to the shops and you're browsing around, you're putting things in your trolley. Once you're happy with some of your items, you go to the register to buy the items. Then you actually do the buying once you're there, and you commit to having these items in your life. And then finally, you post a picture about everything you bought on Instagram. So first up, step 1 is we're browsing and we're writing code. So it starts out, our shopping trip always starts out with shopping. We're going through the shops, we're finding things, we're putting it in our trolley. And this is equivalent to us doing our coding and saving our changes as we go along. So saving something is kind of like putting something in your trolley. So Git's keeping track of all the things that you change. It's kind of like your shopping trolley of like, I've added this item to my trolley, I've added this item to my trolley, etc. So every time we like something, we don't want to leave it on the shelf in case someone else takes it. We put it in the trolley, which is like saving it. You can also put things back at any time. So we had this book. Now we've put this book back. It's not for us today. While you're in the shop, it's very easy to be like, no, actually, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to put it back on the shelf. So that's us going on our little browsing endeavor, finding some stuff that we like. And then we go, okay, I think I've found some things that I like. I'm going to go to the checkout. And I'm going to put some stuff on the conveyor belt. And this is what I'm calling is staging your things that you're about to purchase, but you haven't purchased them yet. You might change your mind at the last minute. They're about to be ready to be purchased. So you're putting your things on the conveyor belt. You can just put some of your things on. Maybe you're not 100% sure on some of the other ones. Maybe you're just like, I want to buy these right now. Then I might shop around a little more in case I find something else that I want, in case I decide that I really do want this teddy bear and this blender. Or you might be like, I'm going to purchase these things in 2 separate transactions for some reason because you want to have specific messages. You want different receipts for them. I know when I was a kid, my parents owned a business. So when we'd go to the shops, we'd buy things for our family and we'd buy things on the corporate card for the cafe that they ran. So we had to put them through in 2 separate transactions. So maybe you're doing that. Maybe you're just not sold on some of them yet and you're going to keep walking around. You're going to keep them for later. And this is also kind of like if you go to the shops and you can see the shop assistant sees you carrying like 25 different, pieces of clothing, and they go, hey, is there anything that you want us to put behind the counter so you don't have to carry it around because you definitely want to like buy that later. So that's kind of like staging your changes as well. They say, we'll just put this behind the register and you can come grab it later when you check out. So it's all there ready to go behind the register. So you can stage things at any time by just giving it to the shop assistant and be like, oh, yeah, I definitely want to get this. Just tuck this away from me so no one else takes it. So this is what I call, this is what is like Git add. So we're adding things, we're staging the things that we want to buy shortly. We're going to commit to buying them in the next step. So next up, we have step 3, purchase, or the commit to having this item in your life. So when you've put all the items through onto the conveyor belt that you want, it's time to purchase them. Before you purchase, it's still easy to say, actually, no thanks, and just be like, I'll just put that back in the trolley, or just give it to the shop assistant, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I'll get rid of this one for you. I actually don't want those sneakers or something, for instance. But in this instance, we're going to buy the t-shirt and the sneakers. And in this step, we say, okay, we're going to complete this purchase and we pay for the things, and it generates us a record or a receipt when we're at the shops. You can still undo this transaction with you take your receipt and you take it back to the shops. It's easier if you haven't left the building yet, but you still can come back later whenever you want to do it and return your items. If you're like, actually, these pink sneakers don't suit me at all, they can go back to the shop. Because it's all on your receipt and it can all be undone. So the great thing about Git is it can generally all be undone unless something horrible has happened. But for the most part, there's a way back. You can see down here, we've still got a little shopping trolley. It's still got our things there. It's just hanging out for the moment. So this is the same as Git commit. This is the part where you say, yes, put this set of changes in my code that we saw with the diff earlier, put it into a log, log the changes. This is part of the code now, the official code record. So that's kind of like your receipt. And when we did git log, which I showed you just a minute ago, we could see that I'd made that commit, and that's kind of like our receipt there. So the final step is you put a picture of what you bought on Instagram or wherever you like to post your social things. You want the rest of the world to know about your shopping trip, so you're going to post it to social media. You might post just what you just bought in, lots of individual things. Here's the shirt and shoes I bought. Here's the, jeans I bought. Here's the this I bought. Or you might wait till you have a whole bundle of things that you'd consider like an outfit that you want everybody to know about as a collective thing, because it doesn't make sense for them to know about the individual things. So those are some of your options for that. And you can still return any of these items after you post it, but it might be a bit awkward if all the people are now talking about your new outfit and the new shoes you just bought, and then you actually have to go, actually return them because they kind of sucked and they weren't very good. And I'm really ashamed about them now because I don't know why I thought I should buy leopard print, sneakers or something. Or maybe your friend's gone out and bought a matching outfit so you can be twinsies. And you've just got rid of your outfit and now your friend's going to be upset and it's a whole thing. So we've got some options of why it's not a great idea to try and backtrack after you've pushed it out to the world. So this step here is like git push. So if you're working alone, i.e. no one follows you on social media, then not much can go wrong by you taking a photo and putting it on the internet, because no one's really going to be paying attention. And that way you have a picture and your picture's backed up to the internet, and that's great. But if you are working part of a team or you have a lot of social media followers, it might be a bit tricky to backtrack if everybody's now talking about it, everybody's using your picture on social media, etc., and you don't have that stuff anymore. So that is what it's like if you're working a team and you push out code and then everybody else pulls your code and now they all have a version of that code and they might start working on top of it, and that's going to be a bit messy if you need to go backwards. So we're now going to start off. So you've got your Git repos ready. You're going to need them if whatever you just made. We're going to start practicing writing some code, adding it, committing it, and pushing it. So I'll demonstrate first. So I've got my file here. We're going to make a new file here. in my file tab on the left in the Explorer. Okay, this is going to be code.py. I'm going to write print hello world. And it's going to be my fabulous new file there. So we've got options for how we add this. So I'm going to go to my plugin here. So as we said, thanks Sarah for putting it in the chat. This extension is called GitHub by Knista Peter. I don't know how you say that. But if you want to grab that, you can go to the little square things down here and write GitHub into here and find this extension, which is really convenient for doing all this stuff here. So we can click on this file and we can see that the things that have changed in this file is that I've said print hello world, and those lines have been added. And I'm going to say add. Now that change is staged here, and we can say it's like on the conveyor belt of our shopping adventure. And then I'm going to write the message. I'm going to say make code file. Try and write good commit messages, but this is a pointless piece of code, so I don't really have a great one for it. So this is one option, and then when we're ready for it, we can hit commit. I wonder if we can see the log in here. I'm not sure. So now let's have a look in the terminal, which I can open up here. I can go git log. And I can say make code file is now in my history. Let's do another one. So I'm going to go back to my code file and add another line, print coding is cool. I'm going to change this to say hi world. So we've got our changes there. I've saved them, put it in my shopping trolley. Now I'm going to do it from the command line this time, so we can all see how that goes. Don't need this window here. Whoops, let's get rid of our whole terminal. Okay, so I'm going to say git status. That's going to show us what is going on. Oh, my branch is ahead of main. Okay, that's fine. So we've got new file in here, which hasn't been added to anything yet. So we might want to add that one as well. And we've got code.py, which has been modified. So we've got two things going on. So I'm going to start by going git add new file. There we go. It's already completed. New file. That's now been added to our staged area. If I go git status again, we can see new file now in green. It's been staged. And we've got modified, still hasn't been staged, is code.py. I'm going to do another one. This is my favorite trick in adding something. Git add -p. And this is going to show you what's been changed. And it's going to break your file up into lots of small chunks. So if you've been doing a lot of code in a lot of different places, this is my hot tip of the year. That way you can actually look at your stuff, and it means that you maybe don't like miss some debugging statement that you've added somewhere that you wanted to get rid of before you pushed it out to the rest of the world. So we can see that I've said, hello world is gone, hi world is in, coding is cool is in. So now I can say, yes, I would like this one. If I didn't want it, I could say no. There's a bunch of different options, like split this chunk up even more because I want parts of it, but not parts of the other parts. So I can say yes. Now I can go git status. We can see it here. So now we've got those there. They're ready to be committed. And we can go git commit. And if I hit enter now, it's going to be like, you need to write a message. So I'm going to open up in Vim to write the message. But I'm really bad at Vim. And the only thing I really know how to do in Vim is to escape from Vim. So instead of doing that, I'm going to say -m, which is like write a message right here in this line because I don't want to go into Vim. And I'm going to say this is the new file. And we've got our code.py is now high. So we've got that. Cool. So I've hit enter. That's now in the Git log. So we've made 2 commits. We've got the latest one at the top, and make code file from before is here. Then I can hit Q to get out of that little preview. Okay, cool. So now we've got two options. I could write git push here, or I could go into here and I could do sync changes. Either one is fine. I'm just going to hit sync changes. This is also going to pull down the changes because it might have some different stuff from above in the cloud. And if they conflict, then it will be like, whoa, you can't do that. You've got to sort out these issues first. So that is how we can, commit, add, commit, and push. So that is that part of the demo. So I'm going to give you all a minute to keep going through that and ask any questions that you might have had along the way. If you've done that, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. Thanks, Balaji. This is my favorite analogy. Came up with that like 7 years ago for teaching an intern. I'm like, oh, never. This is my analogy forever now. Anuska would love to know how to add a README to your Git landing page. Is that for your personal Git landing page? Maybe I will run a workshop on how to there is a blog out there on how to beautify your own personal GitHub page. Because you have your repo. I'll jump to the thing. Where have we got? This one. So there's this repo here that has this file. And then if this had anything, actually this one doesn't have a README. So I could add a README. I could actually add a README from in here. readme.txt, no, that's .markdown MD. And we can say, give it some things. This is a demo repo to learn GitHub. So if I do that, I can actually make commits from in here, create README, and then I can commit directly to main branch, or I could make a new branch. I'm going to talk about branches in just a second now. I'm going to commit to main branch because I don't care about anything else on the main branch and it having conflicts. And now we've got that README. But on your personal profile, because I've got this here, and if this is the part you're talking about, let me know, Anuska. You can make this more pretty by doing what you have to do is you need to make a repo that is named your username. So if I made a repo called Renee Noble, and then I added my markdown in there, yes, Sarah's got all the hot tips. And then you add a bunch of markdown in there, you can style this to look like whatever you want. I have a friend who has a great one for that. I think she is Codes, maybe. Let's find out. You can search for people in here. Maybe she's not. Maybe this isn't going to work at all. Let's give it a go. Work out where to stalk her. Okay. I will stalk her later while I give you in your next activity time. But yeah, you can change your README, and there's a blog on how to do that actually. I will pop that into the chat. I think it does need to be a public repo. I will get the blog out for you all. one of our Microsoft ambassadors actually just did this live on how to do the GitHub repo page. If you want to learn how to do that, maybe I'm having a little trouble finding my links right now. They're all my emails with the world. Maybe I'll put it all up on, oh, here's the blog. We can put up some more links on the web page, on my personal web page after the event, so you can all have access to all that. Okay, I will find those links later and put them all up because yeah, I hadn't known that you could just make a really pretty GitHub profile. I thought what you had was what you got. So I'm keen to do it myself. So I might actually make a workshop of that coming up. But let's get up to the next part. Git next concepts is how to code in a team and more. So we're going to talk about branches, forks, merging, pull requests, and basically how to work with others and share your code. So next up. Unlike when you're writing in a Word doc, or a Google Doc or whatever kind of collaborative doc writing system you use, it's not as good to do that when you're coding something. There are things that allow you to do that, but you kind of want to be all working on the same project. You don't want to be working on different paragraphs and not be working on running the code at the same time. So if we're running our code, but everyone is concurrently working on and thus also breaking different parts of the code at once, when I run my code, it's simply not going to work. It's all going to be broken and I'm going to have a bad time. So on your local machine, when you're writing some code, you have a copy of the repo that you're working on. So we've just cloned the repo to our computers and started working on it. And we have now all of our saved changes. So that might be anything that is still in our shopping trolley, which we haven't added. It might also be all the stuff we've got staged that hasn't been committed yet. And it might be all of the commits that we've made along the way that we haven't released to the rest of the world. So we've got all of that on our local computer. But then if we want to push, save it to the cloud, we need to push it. Saving cloud is great because it means if my computer melts down or breaks or something or gets stolen or anything, all of my work is saved and we can have it back, which is really good, especially if it's a key part of your business. But if we're all working on the same files, it would be messy if we were all pushing our code to the same version, the same remote, and the same instance of that file there. So we can do this better by we can have the security of saving to the cloud, but not having to work all in the same file with branches. So this is what it's going to be a bit like. There's the code. And then we're going to make some branches for your code, for my code, and for her code over there. So we can all have a copy or a reference to this same code. And we get a copy of that code, and then we can start making our own changes, making our own diff. And then we can then go back and merge things together later. So how this pattern goes is, here's a nice basic feature. We've got one called master, and we don't tend to call the branch master anymore because it's not smiled upon by many people. We typically call this main, but most of the images on the internet about Git still refer to it as master, but your GitHub accounts will now update master to be main in most instances. So we've got our main branch here, and this might be the one that you deploy your website from, for instance. And it goes main branch. If there's an update to that, it gets deployed. But you might have a new thing that you want to test out, and you don't want that to get deployed to the internet until it's finished and it's ready to be shared. So we can make our branch, and we can start adding our commits in over here. So we might be adding a new page, changing the styles, whatever we want to do. And then when we're ready to merge that back in, we merge it and it becomes part of master. So all the diffs, the code that we added, deleted, modified over here, that series of changes gets added to the receipt, the log of what the changes on the files have been since here. It's a really clever way of doing it. Rather than overwriting the files, that's what happens. It just adds it to the log of all the things that have happened to the files in their lifetime. So we merge that in here, and we have our new file without having all of our code, as we do it, displayed on the internet in its broken form. So that's one basic pattern, but actually working in this industry looks a little bit more like something like this. You'll probably have your main branch up here on the top. And then a lot of teams will have something called develop or dev, which is where the working copy of their site is that hasn't been released kind of sits. So you also have a few other things going on, like over here, we've got our pink ones, which are our feature branches, which people are saying, I'm going to take this yellow point here and I'm going to branch off that. I want all the code from that point on, and I want to start doing my own project there. So, and then I'm going to merge back in over here. Or you might have ones where you do a small arc and then you pick up the changes and you keep working on the same project, but now you've picked up the changes that have happened since then because maybe they were an important part of your project. Maybe they were from this green section over here that you needed to pull in to finish your project. And then you also have your hot fixes. So there's a horrible bug that someone's discovered on production. We need to fix it immediately. You branch straight off what is currently deployed on the site. You make a change and you push it straight back to fix that problem for everybody. So that's kind of the patterns that you might see. And you might have a bunch of different feature branches. Everyone's working on their own features. You might have several features that you're working on. You might even merge between the two features because two people are working on two related but independent features. So you can do anything you want with branches, basically. So how do we code with branches is the next question. So here's the steps I do to have the easiest, smoothest time when working with branches. So we're going to pull the latest version of the place you want to branch off. If we're branching off our main branch, we'd go and we'd do what's called checking out our main branch, which is like, I am now on the main branch. Here's my place of being. Give me the latest update from the remote, from the cloud. Then we're going to make a branch with the name of my project, for instance. And then we're going to do a bunch of code on that branch, commit it as often as I want. And I can also push it as often as I want, because what it's doing isn't pushing my code to main. It isn't pushing my code to everybody else. Well, it is pushing the branch to everybody else. If they want to look at my branch that I'm working on, they can even pull that branch themselves if they want. But it's my branch kind of. And if you have good team communication, they'll know not to mess with your branch. So you can push that so it's stored on the cloud to keep your code nice and safe. And then when you're happy with all the stuff you've done on your branch and you want everybody else to have your branch, you want that to be part of the main branch, for instance, you can pull that main branch again. So you go to that main branch, check it out on your computer, be like, I'm on the main branch, give me the main branch. And then once you've addressed any, merge, once you've got the latest copy, you can start either doing the merge or you can do what's called a pull request. And then you can push it up. So with the merge, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So yeah, there's two different patterns of teams, how they operate in terms of how they want to communicate and make sure that everyone's on the same page. Because if there's two different features being worked on, it might be important that one gets, merged onto master or main before the other one and things like that. So teams have ways of working together to ensure things are all done in the right order. So let's start with, I think the most, I don't know if it's the most common, but it feels like the safest way that people do working in teams is through the pull request method. So I'm going to go back to my VS Code. Where is it? Somewhere here. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to make a branch firstly. So first we would start by pulling from the main branch. So I could do a pull. I could also write git pull in here. And it will tell me it's all up to date. Great. So we've got two options. I can either go in here and go git branch. Where is the branches? There it is. And create a branch. I could say, I might call it test branch. Let's call it something useful. Feature 1. I could have my feature branch there. So now you can see here that I'm on feature 1. But I'm actually going to go back to my main branch because I'm going to show you how to do it here. So I'm going to go branch. And I'm going to call my branch feature 2. I should write git at the start, otherwise it's not going to know what I'm talking about. Git branch. So now, if I do git checkout in here, feature 2, you can see I'm on feature 2. That also changes here. So 2 ways of doing it. We're now on this new branch. So I can go, so let's add some more stuff. Print, we're going to print feature 2 because that's the whole content of feature 2 is that it now prints out feature 2. And I've saved that code. You can see that it's in the changes here, and we can use either of the methods that we discussed before to add that. So I've changed it, feature 2 code. I'm going to put it, that's our very good description. I'm going to commit that code, and I can publish this branch. So if I do this, we'll now see that it can be seen on my repositories. So this one is called Getting Started Demo. I think that's the one that we're in. Yes. Okay, so now we can see feature 2 has recent pushes less than a minute ago. So GitHub's really convenient. It tells you a new branch has been pushed. You can see in here, we can look at the code that's on feature 2, and we can even click on the file, and we can see feature 2 has this code. We can see the main doesn't have that code. So let's go back. And we can see this is here. And I might be like, okay, that's the entire feature done. I would like that to be put onto main branch now. So I'm going to go and I'm going to make a pull request. So I might be like, add very important feature that does something, etc. Preview what that looks like. You can put pictures in here. So you might have screenshots and things. You could write a long thing to explain what this was all about. And I could make a pull request. So I'm saying that I want to merge my feature 2 branch into the main branch. And this is a really great way of setting things up, because this way you get a review from people before it gets merged. And you can set up an organization so that it requires a review. Otherwise, it simply can't be merged. So we can make a draft if you like, this isn't quite done for later. I want to add some more screenshots, etc. But we're going to make the pull request now. Okay, then at this stage, you could have a bunch of tests that get run. We haven't set any of that up, but that's what you can do in GitHub Actions at the top to set up things to make sure your code works before anybody even bothers reviewing it. So I might come along, or another person in my team might come along, and they might say, oh, yep, time to do a review on this. So I don't know if I can review my own code. Let's find out if I refresh or anything. You could assign reviewers to this. So I might be like, people in my organization, I'm going to tag them in here and say they need to review my code. And then people can comment on your code. And then they could say, that's all looks good to me, looks good to me. And then they could say, they could comment that, or they could say, I need some changes. And then when it's all done and good to go, you can hit merge pull request. I'm going to merge it with that account. Okay, so now if we go back to code, we can see in the main branch, we now have feature 2, which is great. So let's do another one using the merge. So let's go and check out feature 1. And we're going to start by pulling in the code that is now in main. Git pull main. We're going to need to do git. We're going to need to merge in. So we're going to do a merge first. Git merge main and say, hey, please give us the code that's already on there. We haven't pulled it, so that's why it doesn't like us. So we need to pull all the code. Sure. Let's have the git log, see what it's saying to us. Let's see what it says now. Publish this branch while we're in here. Let's go to check out the main branch because I'm not sure if we're fetching all of the branches. Cool. There we go. We've got our file that's been changed. And let's merge into our other branch. So we're going to do the branch that we want to merge into. I'm going to say git merge in. Right in, just think it in your head, git merge main. And then it says fast forward because we haven't actually got any changes. So we're kind of just saying, instead of starting where we used to be, we're going to fast forward to start at this point in time, which is the latest update to main. Because just in terms of the changes we make now, they're all going to be on top of what was there for main before. It didn't matter that we happened to pull main earlier because we didn't do any work on it yet. So we're now going to add our feature.
I'm lost.
Great. Thanks for letting me know, Sarah. Okay. So.
All right. So you get pulled and you got that great big log. I did the same. And then somehow you made it work. And I don't know how. I missed the step.
All good. Okay. So I went and checked out my main branch first because I needed to pull that one specifically because that's where all the code that I wanted was. Sometimes I forget if git pull does all of them or git fetch, and sometimes you have to add extra parameters to get it to pull all of the branches. So I went to git main to just be like to my main branch and say, please give me the latest stuff that's on main. And I did git pull, and it gave me before this one change that I'd made. And then once I'm like, okay, great, I have the change now. I can see that, which is good. And it had not previously arrived. Then I went to my feature 1 branch, and then I did git merge main because I was saying I'm on my feature 1 branch and I would like to merge in all the stuff that's in main, which was that one updated line of code, which was feature 1, which was feature 2, sorry. So I did that, and then it said fast forward. So the reason it says fast forward and not up new changes or something like that is because I hadn't done any code on this branch yet. If I had previously, I've gone, actually we'll do this in a second. If we said, okay, we're doing feature 1 first, and I'd committed this feature 1 code here, it wouldn't have said fast forward because that would be already in my record of things, and it couldn't say, oh, because you haven't done any code, we'll just actually say you started where main is now. We're going to say, it would have to say, we're going to put all the main stuff after your feature 1. But because I hadn't done any code here yet, it's like, great. You're basically, it's as if you're cloning main now, and we don't need to worry about anything that's happened in between because you didn't do anything. So that is how that's all gone.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Oh,
yep,
good?
I'm good now.
Fantastic. Thanks for asking, Sarah. Okay. Something's gone weird when I've changed all my versions. Let's just override it because this is the code we want to add now. The feature 1 code. We're on the feature 1 branch. So we're good to go. And we're going to say we want to add our feature 1 code. So this is We're going to stage that change. We're going to write the commit message. This is feature 1 code. And I'm going to tick that. And now, instead of me saying, going and doing a pull request, which was really easy and nice and safe, I'm actually going to be like, no, this is my repo. I'm the only one on it, or I'm the boss here, and I'm going to merge it straight into main without anybody else looking at it. And sometimes that's completely fine because you might have made 2 branches to do 2 separate parts of a sub project, and then you want to merge them together. And it's your own project, so it doesn't affect anybody else. So we are now on main. We're now on main. Why does it say we're on main here? I'm going to check out wherever we actually are before I commit everything. I already did commit everything. So we'll see what happens. Git log. So, okay, I've committed the code to the wrong branch. I've committed it straight to master. So I guess we're going to go and we're going to learn how to do revert a commit now, because that's not where I wanted the code to be, because we changed around a couple of times. So let's go to main and be like, whoopsie daisies, git log. Let's see if our code is here. Feature 2 is here. Where is our feature 1 code? Is the new question. It's not there. So let's check out where it's gone. Feature 1. Hopefully it's here. Okay, that's good. Okay, it's just where we wanted it to be, I believe. So let's say git log. It's got the feature 1 code. It's got the commit, which is great. We don't need to revert back. Whoops. So we're all good. I can show you later if we have time how to revert the commit, but let's finish up with this one first. So cool. So we've got that, and then I'm going to go to main. Git check out main. I could have done this from the little left button, but it's done it there for us now. And now I would say, okay, first we're going to do git pull main. Make sure we have everything. I would also, before I tried to merge my stuff into main, I would try and merge main into my stuff personally, because that way we know that we work with main before we try and make main work with us. So I'm going to go jump back. Let's use this menu this time. Feature 1. I'm going to git pull main, and it might have had some changes, but we know that it hasn't. Oops, getting some error. Git merge main, that's what we want, not pull. Git merge. We see, okay, we've got these 2 things. So we've actually got a merge conflict coming in, being like, hey, heads up, these look a little bit different. You're going to need to select one of these sections to keep. And you won't always get this. I was not actually expecting this to turn up in this part, but here we are. It saves us doing the next part. And we're going to get rid of the part we don't want. I went, okay, I don't want the part that just has feature 2. I want both. So you make the file look like what you want. And we can see at the top here, it's got this exclamation mark being like, they're in a conflict mode. We're going to save that. And then we can go git status to see where we're up to, both modified and code. And then we can say, we merged in branch main. I think we can now tick that because we've got our merge changes. We're going to tick those and we're going to tick this. Ooh. Why is it going a bit weird? Git status again. Okay, well, we'll see what's just happened here. We said Git can be a bit tricky. And I'm not using my exact normal patterns right now to do these weird demos of useless code. So let's sync the changes and see what it does. And it wants to show us some logs, possibly because exiting because of unfinished merge. Okay, so we're still in the merge state. I'm going to have a look here because I thought it would have noted that this is now how we want it. So we're here. Git add, here we go, add code.py, git status. Git commit. That's what it wants. Luckily, they always tell you what to do in Git most of the time to get it all fixed. So there we go. We've fixed the merge conflict. We can say, yep, it's pulled up Vim, and luckily, it's just got a message in there. You know, if you're a Vim expert, I'll let you be the Vim experts. I'm going to do :Q to say, get out of here. And there we go. In our Git log, we can now say that we fixed the merge conflict. Merge branch main into feature. Whoop. And now we can do the reverse. I'm going to go to Git checkout main, and now I'm going to merge my feature one branch into main without any problems, I hope. You know, if you're in a team, someone could obviously have pushed some new code in the 10 minutes between you pulling and pushing, and hopefully it's unrelated to your code, but you know, things happen. So we're going to go git merge. Actually, let's do it from this menu up here for a change. Git merge branch, merge in, and we're going to merge from feature one. And there we go. We're going to sync those changes, because now we have feature one is also part of this code here. Cool. Do we have any questions on any of that before I move on to how to do a fork and contribute to an open source project? Let you all catch up with that for a second while I pull up the other project I prepared earlier so I can fork it. It was a long time before I actually learned how to resolve a merge conflict. And the reason I actually decided to run this workshop for women and gender diverse people is because of those experiences when I was first learning Git as a student. I was using Git for my honors project, and my partner at the time, they would just do it for me if I got stuck on something, which was really helpful of them. But it wasn't really helpful in the long run, not being able to do it myself. And then later on, I'd get the same treatment from a lot of other people, especially men who didn't want to, well, they wanted to really help me by solving a situation rather than teaching me the solution. It wasn't until like about 3 years later that I was teaching at a summer camp, and I was like, oh, I need to help the students merge this project, but it's got a merge conflict. And I don't know how to deal with that because someone else always does that for me because it's too hard for me to do, and they just want to help me get over this hurdle. But then another woman came along, and then she's like, oh, I'll just show you how to do that. And it was as easy as what I just showed you. It has the markers of one part of the code, the other part of the code, and you go, what parts of the code do I want to keep and delete? And you just get rid of them, and then you commit it, and then it's done. And then I went, oh my God, it's been 3 years of people telling me that I can't do that. Why? So that's why I decided to run this workshop, because everyone should get a chance to learn how to solve a merge conflict. So with that said, I'm going to move on to the last part, which is how to work in another team's project. So sometimes there's different ways of operating, and even within Microsoft, sometimes we operate under this method because there's so many people trying to contribute to the same projects. And this is the forking method. So imagine, for instance, there's an open source project you want to contribute to, or it might be another team's project that you're not part of the core team. But there's a repository that you're like, I have some code that I'd like to contribute to it. Or potentially you just want to make a copy of it and go off on your own way and do your own thing with it, even if you don't want to ever give it back. So this is when we would use a fork. So there's their project, and then you want to make a copy of that project. So you can make your own thing, make your own idea based on part of their project. So you're going to make a fork and you're going to get a whole copy of their code. Every branch, you're going to have a copy of that. And then you can start making your own idea based on whether it's master or it's based on a particular branch. And then if you have something to contribute back, you can say, I want to make a PR to this branch. Or I might want to make a PR because it's really important. Everyone should have it. I'm going to make it to the master branch of that. Or maybe you don't make a PR at all because you just want to keep it for yourself and have your own cool little project on the side. And with a lot of open source projects, they're completely happy for you to do it because that's why they make it open source, so people could have it and do whatever they wanted with it. So in this activity, the final activity, we're going to make a fork of a project. If you want to join in, I have a project you can already fork from my weird demo organization. This is not where I put it. Let's grab that one back. Here we go. So I'll chuck it in the chat if you want to come and fork this project with me. We can go to this repository. So now that we're in there, you can start by going into, what am I going to do? I've forgotten where the fork button is for some reason. Let's see. There it is at the top. I knew it was in the top right-hand corner of something. So up in the top right-hand corner, we have the fork. So far, no one has forked this because I made it today. So I'm going to call my one, it's going to be test one. So it obviously relates back to the initial one. And then I'm going to call it Renee because I can. And I can add my own description for my own README, my version of this thing. And I can create a fork. And this is going to make a copy. So now you can see a second ago we were in demo org1 rn test 1. And now we're in Renee Noble test 1-Renee. So it's busy making a fork of that repository for me. So now I have my own copy and it says it's forked from demo org1 rn test 1. So
could you post that link, please, Renee?
To the, did I not post it in the chat?
Maybe I'm just not seeing it.
Why is it not showing up? Have I put it in some? It's just turned up for me.
The
chat was lagging because there's a bunch of messages I didn't see until just now. But we'll look at these questions.
No, I see it now. Thank you, Renee.
Great. Cool. Okay, so we've got that. And you can fork that repo and it makes your very own copy of it. And now we can follow the process that we did earlier, which we could clone another copy of it and we could bring it down onto our computer and do some editing there. But for the purposes of this, I'm actually just going to edit it in the browser because it's another great way to edit stuff if you, for instance, just want to make a small change. So I might edit my README, needs more info in here. I might put that in there and that generates a commit for me. I'm going to put that straight onto my main branch. We can use all the stuff we did earlier as well, but just imagine you're doing it. You could do it in your own, in VS Code. There's also a bunch of other ways you could go about doing this. You could create a code space for it in here, which is a way of coding in the browser. So let's add one of those, which I haven't done much in code spaces. See how long it takes to set up. Give us the code space. And we might make a new file in here. So I'm going to make a new file. This is I'm going to make this my Py file. Python.py. There we go. That seems like a not problematic name that wouldn't break anything potentially. I'm going to do print. This is a Python file. And then I'm going to save that. And then we actually have all the coding extensions in here, all the Git extensions. And I can commit my Python file. And I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to sync the changes. And yep, so we have all the same commands up here in code spaces on GitHub, and it links right to your thing, which is really convenient. I haven't learned a lot about it yet, but you can run all your code and it will do the containers and stuff for you, and it sounds super easy. So I'll be looking more into that one, I think.
Sorry, Renee, I just didn't see how you started that.
Yep, no worries. Let's do it again. So we can go to code spaces and you can say create code space on main. So I'll have another one. Oops, it broke because I've probably already done that. So it doesn't like that. But you do that, go to create code space on main, and then it will make you a little box in the cloud to do your coding in.
I don't see that on mine, so maybe I have
really? Interesting.
I'm not seeing that either, but if you press the period key, it does it for you, apparently.
Great. Cool. I don't know why you didn't have it. This is some sort of secret Microsoft thing that I've just spoiled for everybody, but I feel like this is something that's already released. It might be in beta release, actually, now I think about it, so I'm not sure. But if it made you one when you press the period button, great. This is just one option on how to do something. You can just create files in here, create a new file. Let's do one here as well. It's called another.py. Print. This is the file. And we're going to commit that. Great. Okay, so we've got a bunch of files here now, and we're ready to make a pull request back to where it came from. Now, a new pull request. So you get new rule pull request and say the base repository is demo org1 rn test1, and we've got their main branch selected. And then I want to say I want to send the head of my repository from the main branch back to their organization. So I'm going to say, yep, that's it. I want to give them all of this code because they really need it for their project. I'm going to create a pull request, and it's getting created. And now I'm on demo org1-rn again. So this is where the pull request is now. So when I clicked create pull request, it kind of transported me to the place I would want to pull request it to. And then we can go into pull requests and see if it's not there. Interesting. Let's try that again. No. Let's go back to our files. Right. Okay. One more time. Pull requests. New pull request. This is all of our code. We definitely want to add all of this stuff. Create the pull request. We need to give it a title, I think. Have some code. There we go. We can create the pull request. Now we're on demo org1. I can go and see that I am in pull request, and this is the pull request that someone who happens to be me has made. And I can go, great, this is really useful code that I've checked and it passed all of our tests and everything, and it's time to bring it in to my project. So I'm going to merge it in to my project that's, you know, part of another organization, for instance. And now when I go to my code, we now have python.py, another.py, and update to the README. So that's how we can do that forking process. It's great for if you're working with another team, or if it's just easier to everyone have their own copy of the repo and they can have as many branches as they want. It's like, imagine if you're working in a giant place like Microsoft and everybody, all your cloud advocates are working on the same repo, then everybody having 10 different branches for the different series they are making could be a bit messy if you have 50 cloud advocates, that makes 500 branches. So that's a bit crazy. So everyone having their own repo and pushing something into main when it needs to go in is a great way to handle that. So I'll pause there for people to catch up for the last couple of minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Please ask any questions that you have. I haven't covered everything in Git, obviously, because there's like so many things, but if you have a quick question that you're just like, oh, I really wish I knew what cherry picking meant or something, do let me know and I'll try and answer it in 2 sentences or less.
I got lost again, Renee. Sorry.
No
this
worries.
is the bit that I have real trouble with. So I forked your repo and I edited a file.
Mhm.
And now I don't seem to, I can't see how to get it back into the original.
Okay, so I'll jump back to my version of this. Go to me and then go to my fork of this. Actually, I'm going to jump back to here so I can get to my fork because I have vastly too many repos. Okay, forks. But 3 other people forking it. Show me the forks. Apparently not. Okay, cool. So here's my fork. Okay, so I'm going to make another file change just so we have something to add. More code. And then I commit that. Okay, so next up, I go, that's some really good code I've written there. I go to pull requests at the top. And I go new pull request. And then, does yours have this whole thing already set up, Sarah?
No, I don't see that. It's asking me to compare and review it between 2 branches, and I don't get it.
Interesting. Okay, so if we go back to the your repo version of it, does it say forked from demo org 1 rn/test1?
No, it doesn't.
Interesting. So I don't know how you got a copy of it all.
I could see on your screen that I was one of the ones who forked it, but
yes. Okay.
But it's not saying that.
I would suggest you go to this repo and then click forks and then see if it takes you to the same place.
Okay.
So I've just, I think, tried to make a pull request back to you with the changes that I made. So
let's see if they've arrived. I've got 2 pull requests. I am trying to send my changes back to you. Excellent. Is that you, JCat?
Yeah, Joy. Yeah.
Joy.
Now I'm seeing it.
Amazing.
Okay. Can't automatically merge.
Okay, fantastic. Love these changes. So resolve conflicts. So how do we're going to resolve some conflicts. Okay, so we're going to be like, actually, yeah, this is great code. We're going to say we want all of this code, actually. We're going to be, these ones are all important. So we're going to say this is the file as it stands now. Okay, and we're going to mark as resolved, commit, merge, and understand. Okay, and now I can merge your pull request. Be like, great code. Yeah. You'll get a notification that that's been merged in. Cool. Let's do the other one too. So this is how you would do a pull request. Merging. Everybody's in. Getting Anuska's in as well. Okay, so you're going to resolve some more conflicts. README. This is all excellent code. We need it all, I think. We could get rid of part of it only. Actually, let's go back because we might be like, actually, Anushka's got all the right stuff. We don't need this part here anymore. Actually, let's do that. So that's how you would often do something. You choose half of it, but sometimes it's a mix and match endeavor. Mark this as resolved and commit that. And it's going straight onto main. finally, can merge that one. And then we've got one more from Sarah. Got some more conflicts. Excellent code from everybody. Beautiful work. Love it all. And we can commit them all. And we have now our final beautiful project. Cool. Okay, so we go back to the code now, and we can see that we've got everyone's messages in here as well. So that's it. We've done all the, all the basic stuff. Does anyone have any other questions before we wrap up?
So my only other question is if you've committed something and it's been pulled in, that pull request was accepted, yep. And then let's say you thought, oh no, I shouldn't have approved that. I want to go back to the version before you approved it.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Okay,
so let's go back to here. Do it in the terminal actually, of VS Code, because it's a bit nicer. Okay, so let's go git log in here, and we can see all the changes. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but here's probably the quickest way. We want to say, actually, the place that we want to be at is this one here. This was the last time the code was good, when we added feature 1. So I would grab this thing here, and I say, okay, let's say git. I normally double check this before I do it, but I'll give it a go because what's the worst that can happen? Git reset --head, and we can go soft. I think is the code, and then basically we want to say the head of our code is going to be at this commit, and soft would mean that would say keep all of the changes that we've made so I can review them and keep some of them and get rid of them. You could also do hard and be like, throw it all out. It was bad. Get rid of it. And I've definitely done something wrong. So I'm going to go cut to my next slide, which is you go to oh shit git, which is what we're going to go to now to look up what is the best thing to do in this situation. Oh shit git. I'm always Googling things because there's so many different git commands. So we want to do the thing that says git reset head index. That's what we want. Okay. So we're going to say go back in time to this index, or -1 actually. You can just go back one thing, gets reset -1. -1 like this. Interesting. So we scroll through here. We find out there's like a bunch of like, how do I go back in time things in here? So oh shit git is the place to be. There's also like a revert go to, which is probably better if it's something that is not pushed.
Two dashes before soft on what you wrote the first time?
Or did I put the 2 dashes? I did put 2 dashes. Let's find out. Git reset head. Maybe I didn't do the tilde. Let's copy this. Get exactly what we want. If we do that, then what have we got now? Git log. There we go. It's gone back one thing. So it automatically pops back one thing. You can specify to reset to a specific place or a specific number of things. So I think the tilde is how to do exactly 1. But I think you could also do -1. You have to get it. You have to Google it, because I'd have to Google it. Here we go. Okay. So that said, let's go back one spot, and now we can see we've gone back to a time before we had committed these 2 bits. So you can keep going on back until you get back to a safe place, or you can go look up your log. You can get these on GitHub as well. Say, this is the safe place. So we go to, where is it? Let's take a look at this, and then we can get commits from where things were done. And you could go and look for these, and then you get the commit number there, and then you can go back to that point in time because that was a safe place to be. Does that vaguely answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up and I tell you all that I have other series you can watch?
Just one.
Yes.
I forked that repo, right? And now it's got a whole load of pull requests merged into it. Do I have to fork it again? How can I get all those changes?
Great question. So I will jump to there because we can update from upstream. So this is, where is the forks? Cool. So we're going to go to my fork and then fetch upstream. You see this here? It says, hey, there's a bunch of stuff on this one that's been added. Do you want it? And I can go open a pull request to grab all of that stuff. So if I do that, I say, get the new stuff. And then we're going to merge demo orgs 1, test 1 into my thing. And we'll create the pull request, and then we'd go through and fix all of the changes. And now in my personal one, I have all of your changes. Well, I have a pull request with all of your changes there. So cool. We've also got Sweet Oz, who's made a fork of my fork, which I've actually done live on stream trying to make a fork of something, and I've made a fork of my own thing somehow. So you can end up with forks upon forks. And now finally, let's add in our new stuff. It's probably going to have some conflicts. Resolve the conflicts. We're going to keep all the stuff. Great. And then we mark as resolved, and then we commit the merge. We commit straight onto main. And now, if we go there, we can see we've got all these beautiful headings now. So yeah, that's how you would merge in from upstream. So there seems to be more upstream stuff, but yeah, cool. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, I will wrap up by telling you, you have the access to these resources. You can do some more practice on GitHub stuff. And there's Oh Shit Git, which I showed you, which has lots of helpful stuff. And I will go there when I'm stuck because there's just too many things on Git to remember, and they have very specific syntax. But hopefully you've got all the basics and you're comfy with those. And if you have those, you can keep building on that. So if you want to watch more stuff from me, you can join me tomorrow at 4 p.m. if you want to learn about Python data structures. We're doing lists and tuples tomorrow, then the week, and then the rest of this month we've also got sets and we've got dictionaries. And also if you like uni students and you want to hear about their stories about becoming student ambassadors and cool stuff they've built through their learning as a student ambassador, we've got one on this Thursday. We're talking to Victor Olet, who he's made a really cool thing to generate FAQs based on previously asked questions and pulling all of the unstructured data together. So those are some fun things I have coming up for you this week. But thank you all, everybody, for coming. Everyone who's still on the line and who's participated and forked a repo. Yeah, I hope you had fun with Git today.